I'm talking to Martyn Pellew, a development director of PD Ports, about plans for the Teesside port, which will involve the creation of some 5,500 jobs in the area, but also increase the amount of freight going on rail. Martyn.
Well, we've got a number of projects going ahead, some in the chemical sector, but the largest of them is the building of a new deep-sea container terminal, which will have a capacity of about 1.5 million 20-foot equivalent units, or 1.5 million TEU. That'll be something over £300 million investment to be started next year, 2009, and a 2-year build programme.
Have you got a market in mind for that? You know, who's going to be using this?
Yes, we're very much aiming at the northern market, which is we want a port in the north of England to serve the needs of northern consumers and retailers. So those containers that are coming to be delivered to shops in places like Manchester, to Leeds, to Edinburgh, Glasgow, Newcastle, should come through a northern port rather than through the traditional routes in the south of England.
Right, and how important is this for the local retailer? Presumably you're going to create some jobs out of this?
Yeah, for the region it's extremely important. We estimate there'll be about 5,500 new jobs. That'll be 500 dock workers, about 2,000 working in and around the docks on logistics in warehouses, truck drivers, etc. And then about 3,000 people will be what's called induced employment, which is people selling sandwiches to people who are repairing the forklift trucks that are working on the site. So it'll be a very big employment opportunity.
But wouldn't it be better if the material came in from the existing ports in the south? Do we really need a new port?
Well, Christian, I think that's excellent as a question. And traditionally things have come in through the south of England. Ports such as Felixstowe, Southampton, or on the Thames. But the problem with that is over half the cargo that's coming in via containers into the UK is actually going to a destination north of Birmingham. And so they're doing an unnecessary mileage, travelling from a port in the south up through the already very congested roads in the south of England, or even on the railways, which are very congested with commuters going to London. And what we're saying is, well, why not use the one piece of infrastructure that this country's got a lot of, which is the sea? We're very, very fortunate. We're an island. Nowhere's more than about 120 miles from the sea. So why don't we try to get the cargo delivered to a port near its final destination and reduce the inland mileage? Instead of doing, say, 350 miles up from Southampton to get to Newcastle, or 400 plus miles to get to Scotland, why not just take it round by sea and get to a northern destination via a northern port?
What do we need to make this happen?
Well, we're very confident that over time we can persuade the shipping lines, but our number one priority has been to talk to what's known as the shippers, the big retailers, the big shipping companies, customers. So we've been talking to the likes of Asda and Tesco's, who've already decided to put import centres at Teesport, so that the containers that are bringing in flat screen televisions, bringing in DVD players, barbecue sets, Christmas trees, from China, from the Far East, are bringing their cargoes to the north of England and then distributing them to their regional distribution centres and their retail stores in the north of England. And that's saving them millions of lorry miles a year.
There seem to be two advantages here. One, you're going to create a lot of the jobs in the north as opposed to the overcrowded south, but there's also a green issue whereby you're going to try to increase the amount of freight on rail and reduce the carbon footprint of a lot of these imports.
It'll certainly help. It'll reduce the carbon footprint of those companies that have traditionally used trucks to move lorry traffic up things like the M3, the M34, the M1, A1 to get to the north. These are very busy and congested roads where people are travelling unnecessary mileages, bringing those goods and those lorry loads from the south to the north. And that will go.
Crucially, one of the things you need here is better rail infrastructure. Can you maybe explain what you need there?
Well, absolutely right, Christian. If you look at the environmental aspects of transport, the least use of carbon fossil fuels is by sea transport in terms of the number of tonnes and kilometres travelled. Then you get railways, and lastly, the most polluting is road. So ideally what you would do is bring the cargo as close as you can to the end destination via a port in the north of England, and then use rail for the last 50, 60, 70 miles, even 120 miles to get across to places like Glasgow, to get across to Manchester, down to Leeds from Teesport. You'd reduce the mileage and therefore you'd reduce the carbon footprint. And you could try to do that, if you can, by rail rather than road, because it's about 5 times less polluting than going by road. Teesport is in the northeast of England, about 250 miles north of London. It's a port that has grown over the last 600 or 700 years into what is today one of the 3 largest ports in the UK. It handles nearly 50 million tonnes of cargo, made up of predominantly chemicals, but also a lot of steel. But the real future of shipping in this country is about the growth of containers. As manufacturing has moved away from the UK base into Eastern Europe and far more recently into the Far East, then more and more containers are coming into this country. And the traffic volumes from the Far East are growing in the range of 6 to 8% a year. All those containers come into the country at the moment in the south, and yet we've got a port in the northeast at Teesport near Middlesbrough, which is perfectly capable of handling the large vessels. It's very close to the open sea. Ships can sail in 20 minutes, they can get moored, they can get berthed, they can get unloaded very, very rapidly. There's very good road access. There's a dual carriageway right from the doorstep of the port all the way to London. There is excellent rail access. Today we have 10 trains a day coming in bringing steel and potash, and we have 3 extra trains handling containers. We want to increase that significantly because the future lies with using rail rather than road for the movement of goods into this country.